all. A very warm welcome to all of you. On behalf of MahaIP, I welcome you all, delegates, respected faculty members, Central IP members, as well as Maharashtra IP members. Myself, Dr. Sonali Shirbhate from Amravati, Chairperson, Women's Committee, MahaIP. I welcome our President, Dr. Ramakant Patil Sir, our Secretary General, Dr. Amol Pawar Sir. I welcome all esteemed faculties, Dr. Arun Wadhwa Sir, Dr. Sanjay Marathe Sir, Dr. Rajendra Khadke Sir, Dr. Sanjay Lalwani, our Vice President, Dr. Shyam Chaudhary, our Convener, Dr. Milind Baradia, and our Treasurer, Dr. Varke Sir. As you all know, this is the 4th episode of Immunization Dialogue. And you all know that this is a very popular session of Maharashtra IP. I am very fortunate today to introduce our special guest panelist today. Our guest panelist, Dr. Arun Wadhwa Sir. He is a past ACVIP member and he is a practicing consultant pediatrician since 31 years. His ACVIP member since in 22-23. He was editor of question and answer books on vaccinology and many books on vaccinology also. He is a national trainer for vaccinology module of IIP. He is a chief patron of NGO Eye Care. He is North Zone EB in 21-22 and many more introduction, but our time is not permitting to read all this. Welcome, respected Arun Wadhwa sir. As well as our all esteemed faculties today are the ACVIP members. Dr. Sanjay Marathe sir. Everyone knows about Sanjay Marathe sir. He is from Nagpur. He is a consulting pediatrician and he is the stalwart of immunization. I welcome Dr. Sanjay Marathe sir. As well as I welcome Dr. Lalwani sir. Before handovering my mic to Lalwani sir, there will be the lecture by Dr. Sanjay Marathe sir, and as well as the panel session will be after lecture. The panel session will be moderated by Dr. Khadke sir. I hand over mic to Dr. Sanjay Lalwani sir. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I think good evening to all of you. I think we are having the 4th session today on immunization. The subject which we are going to discuss today is adjuvants and conjugate vaccines. So the first 15 or 20 minutes, Dr. Sanjay Marathe would make us understand the adjuvant concept and why we need a conjugate vaccine and the basic immunology part of it. And the second part, of course, we would take all the conjugate vaccines which are available to all of us in our day-to-day practice, and few of them have been a part of the NIP. And I think for that particular session, Rajendra Khadke would be a moderator, and myself, Sanjay Marathe, and Dr. Arun Wadhwa. As a protocol, we have always called a national recognition person in vaccinology to be one of the panelists to give insight into this subject. So I think I hand over to Sanjay Marathe to take over on his lecture on conjugate and adjuvant and the conjugate vaccine. And following that, we would have the panel discussion, which would be moderated by Rajendra Khadke. Over to you, Sanjay.
Sanjay sir, kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sonali, for your kind words. And I'm equally thankful to Milind, Mohan, Shyam, Amol, and Ramakant, a team of MahaIP, for giving us this opportunity and this platform, academic platform, to discuss vaccine from basics to beyond. This is an excellent concept. Today, I will be delivering 2 small talks. What do you mean by adjuvants and what is its role in our vaccines? And what are the conjugates and what is the importance of that? So without wasting our time, I will share my first slide. Is it visible also?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
the role of adjuvants in vaccine, friends, whatever I've understood about the vaccine, these adjuvants, I can compare it if you are an say good
Sir,
student.
make it full screen.
It is full sway only.
Okay.
Yeah. See, the adjuvant is like if you are a student is scoring about say 70% of the marks, but you want to take an admission in medical college or engineering, what you want to do is to improve the score. And the only thing you can improve the score is to join some good teaching class. Either you can job Byju's classes or you can job FITG. And this is exactly what the teachers will do and improve your score. From 60%, you will score 90%. And this is exactly what the adjuvants are supposed to do in your vaccines. The adjuvant is the Latin words meaning that to help forward. So what are the adjuvants? Adjuvant is a substance that enhances the immune response to the presence of an antigen. So two things are required. Antigen presence is required and the presence of the adjuvant is also required. It is used to improve the vaccine efficacy. They are injected alongside of an antigen. So you cannot inject them separately. And how they work, still it is not very clear how they work. We'll see what are the possible mechanisms. The commonly used adjuvants are aluminum phosphates and sulfates, which I have already seen. Oil emulsions similar to aluminum. Again, they will stimulate Th2 response. There are sugars from cell walls of microbes. Examples are saponins. Then synthetic adjuvants like MF59. Even the bacterial products of killed bacteria, Bordetella pertussis is also acting like an adjuvant. The cytokines IL-1, IL-2 and IL-12, as well as the organic substances like saquilin, they are also the adjuvants who are playing important role in the vaccine in improving their immune responses. So basically, it's an immunological agent which is enhancing the body's immune response to an antigen. What are the different roles it is playing? It is going to boost the immune response. The response is going to be longer and long-lasting immunity. It minimizes the dose. By minimizing the dose of an antigen, it reduces the toxicity of the antigen. And it also plays a role in decreasing the number of doses. So these are the broader aspects of the adjuvant, which is playing an important role. What are the basic mechanisms of adjuvants? We'll go into details. Basically, to formation of a depot at the site of injection, upregulations of cytokines and chemokines, then how well you can present an antigen to the immune system for a better response, activation and maturation of the dendritic cells, and activation of inflammasomes. These are the possible basic mechanisms of an adjuvant. So what is the purpose of this adjuvant adding to the vaccine? Basically is to boost the immunity, to allow the fewer doses and the lesser quantity of the vaccine, because we have seen if you increase the dose of the antigen, ultimately you will reach a plateau or you will have more side effects. So to avoid both, we can add adjuvant to get the similar response without having the much side effects of an antigen. As I have already said, the definite mechanism is not known. What I will go into the last, which is the research. The research says likely generating immunocompetent environments at the location of the vaccine through activation of an innate immunity. The most important role of an adjuvant is to activate the innate immunity. And as we all know, the vaccine which stimulates innate immunity in a better way has a better immune response and vaccine efficacy. So adjuvant is helping the vaccine antigen to activate the innate immunity. What are the possible 4 ways? The activation of antigen presenting cell to signal the immune system T cell that new antigen has come. So basically it has informed the T cell that antigen has come, and in turn this T cell is going to stimulate the B lymphocyte for a better production that we'll see subsequently. Activating T cells indirectly by discharging phagocytes that attach themselves to the T cells. What is the role of T cells? The subsequently activated T cells will release the cytokines. Then cytokines and the T cell will help the beta lymphocytes gets activated and will be targeted towards to go to an follicular dendritic cells. The follicular dendritic cells along with the T cells will stimulate the B lymphocyte for the 3 important reactions which are very, very important for a quality immune response is a clonal proliferation, affinity maturation, and antibody switch. So all these things can be activated by this adjuvant. Third, it will target antigen in a specific location so that the immune system is exposed to this antigen maximum. The another most important role is to create a depot. What it will happen? Adjuvant along with the antigen is kept in a polymer. A polymer is slowly releasing substance. So once you give the vaccine along with the adjuvant, it stays there for a longer time. It is slowly released. More slowly the antigen is released, more and more inflammatory cells can take up this antigen and go to the respective lymph nodes. So better and better will be the immune response. So this depot effect or a slow release phenomena is one of the very important aspects of an adjuvant. Then what is an adjuvant system? The adjuvant system is a combination of immunomodulatory molecules designed to provide better and broader protection. So here from the conventional adjuvants, we are now going to the better and finer adjuvants like ASO1, ASO4, MF59 and CPG1050. So again, I will not go into the details because we have already seen this. This is just to tell you what are the different mechanisms by which the adjuvants are working. In short, we will not go into the details. Alum, which is very commonly used for last 80 years, will stimulate all the antigen presenting cells and will try to bring them to the site of vaccine to get more and more vaccine towards the immune system. So this is one role. Another role is basically to differentiate B cell is also a role of an adjuvant. So alum will play a very important role in differentiation of the B cells. The third, the alum also plays very important role in activating neutrophils, eosinophils and monocytes, which are also important antigen presenting cells, and they will stimulate the B lymphocyte subsequently by carrying more and more antigens to the germinal center. This is what I was talking about, the depot preparation. You can see antigen and adjuvant, they are in the depot preparation. Slowly it is released. More and more vessels will, the blood vessels will come there as an inflammatory marker. More and more inflammatory markers will go there, will take the antigens and ultimately will go to the T cell in the germinal cell, activate the T cell, and what we have seen on T cell response to give a better immunity to the particular vaccine which we have injected, that is indirectly protecting the individual against the disease. So this is what the depot preparation is. This is equally important. A cluster of genes encoding cytokines, chemokines, innate immune receptors and interferons induce genes, and gene encoding adhesions molecules defined as adjuvant core response genes. These are activated by the adjuvants, and therefore all the results which we have discussed is basically through these adjuvant core response genes. So I thought this is something which is the update in this. This is important. We will not go into the details. These are the newer adjuvants and this is the way they act. Just to put it short, these are the 7 or 8 different ways on which one is the depot preparation, second is the secretion of cytokines and chemokines, third is immune cell recruitment at the site of injection, antigen uptake through PRR, then maturation and activation of the immune cell, sixth is antigen processing and presentation, then activated APCs traffic to draining lymph nodes, and ultimately activating the T cells. If you say in short what is the role of adjuvant, the adjuvant plays this role in these 7 different ways and give the best result. Alum, which is commonly used since 1930, will not go into the details. One observation study in September 22, they said use of alum may be associated with persistent asthma. But on this single report, the CDC has not changed its recommendation. So we continue to use the alum as an adjuvant. Adjuvant of Shingrix is ASO1B. We have seen Cervarix, they used to claim by using ASO4. It is one of the best adjuvants. Then CPG18, which is seen in the Helpisar BA vaccine, which is used in adults above 18 years. And what is Matrix M? Adjuvant made from saponins derived from soap bark tree along with cholesterol and phospholipids. And we all know in a COVID vaccine, Novavax, this was the Matrix M which was used. Then this CPG 59 or 1050, is used in fluid, a quadrivalent vaccine used in adults. It is very safe and highly immunogenic also. Friends, this is what we all should know about the adjuvants. I think if there are any more questions, we can discuss during the panel discussion. Should I go to the second one?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Now let us talk about an conjugate. I said adjuvant is one. If you are a good student, around 70%, and if you want to score 70 to 90, you start joining some coaching classes like FITGI and score 90%. You score and then you pay the fee and forget about the adjuvant. It is the same. Here the story is different. Here the story is of a boy who is a very duffer, who is just 40-50% scoring in the class, but wants to go to the medical college or engineering. So what he is doing, he is now joining a personal coaching classes. And now this personal coaching classes, teacher will stay with him in every subject, every page of the studies which he is doing. He will be with the child. He will go up to the stage that he scores 90% and without asking for anything will run away from the story. So selfless, you can say services given is nothing but the conjugate. And conjugate is nothing but the joining hands. So let us see how the conjugate joins the hands. So the very first concept of conjugate is a substance that is composed of a polysaccharide which is fused, conjugated to a carrier molecule, and this molecule is always a protein molecule. Why? We'll see in next few slides. Those who have, they know the immunology, I think this is a very common slide and which we use. I will just say in a short, in a germinal center, the marginal zone and the center part, the marginal zone has very few B lymphocytes, whereas the central part is abundant B lymphocytes plus T lymphocytes. The polysaccharide vaccine will only, antigen will only stimulate the marginal zone, having only B lymphocyte. So that means there is no T cell activation, and therefore polysaccharide antigen is called as T-independent immune response. Whereas protein will stimulate, I will tell you how, the germinal center which is rich with B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes, the immune response will be T or a thymus dependent. And then we'll have all the advantages which we are going to see. Now, if you know that all the polysaccharide antigens of the capsulated organisms is having the maximum mortality and mortality, which is causing highest mortality in first 2 years, they are having slimy layer and then the polysaccharide antigen, which with the help of the slimy layer, they can evade the immune responses. Unfortunately, those who are less than 2 years are having very poorly developed immunity, so they will not even act on the polysaccharide antigen, and then they will say maximum diseases, they are killing these infants less than 2 years. They are basically having a polysaccharide antigen, whether it is hemophilus, whether it is pneumococcal, whether it is meningococcal, and to some extent typhoid also. So now we are left unfortunately with no immunity against these diseases. So what can be done? If you change the structure of the molecule from carbohydrate to the carbohydrate plus protein, the immune system is developed in such a way at this time, it picks up this antigen, goes to the immune system, says, now I have come with my friend, develop antibodies against both of us. And so that the polysaccharide antigen also gets antibodies, and this is how we protect the small kid from the disease. This is in short about all these things. This is exactly what I have discussed, so I can skip this slide. Now, a conjugate vaccine is a subunit vaccine which combines weak antigen with a strong antigen carrier, so as to have a stronger immune response. Antigen of the same pathogen, that is carbohydrate, will not elicit a strong immune response. Hence, protection offered will be inadequate. Example will be PPSV23 and PCV13. So the weak antigen carbohydrate is combined with the strong antigen protein. If you go back to history in short, 1927, they noticed that if you give a hip polysaccharide poor response, they combined this hip polysaccharide with diphtheria toxin and there was a remarkable improvement. And when this HIV vaccine was introduced in the national immunization program, you will not believe, IPD because of the HIV has come down to 90%, and almost the disease has disappeared from the screen till they made a mistake in 1999 by removing a booster. I'm sure Dr. Khadke is going to ask me this question again, so I will discuss at that time. So now this is very important. What is the limitation of a polysaccharide antigen? Polysaccharide antigen immune response creates B cell independent of T cell stimulation. The immune system of a child less than 2 years is inadequately developed to respond to a polysaccharide antigen. Polysaccharide antigen cannot mount the response on the major histocompatibility, which is there usually seen on a dendritic cell of an antigen presenting cell. And so there is no T cell stimulation. If there is no T cell stimulation, what will happen? There will be no memory cell. There will be no long-lived plasma cells. There will be poor vaccine efficacy. Pharyngeal carriage elimination will not be there. So herd effect will not be there. Short-lasting response will be there. And we'll have to give repeated doses of a polysaccharide vaccine because boosting is not there. And there is a risk of hypo-responsiveness. So polysaccharide vaccine, polysaccharide antigen is not a good antigen. The same thing happens in a neonatal age group. The marginal zone germinal cell presently in the spleen is poorly developed. Then quantitative defect of IgG2 and IgG4. Friends, as you know, this IgG2 is a very important antibody against many polysaccharide antigen. This can be synthesized only if there is a T cell stimulation. And marginal zone B cell with adult features will develop by 2 years. So friends, if you remember, a polysaccharide typhoid vaccine was indicated only after 2 years of age. Then poor production of interleukin-1 and TNF-alpha in infants, which is needed for good T-independent response in a polysaccharide antigen, is also missing. So all these things, these are the limitation in an the infant, where it will not respond to a polysaccharide antigen, and therefore we have something else to be done. So this is the representation what will happen in a neonate if you give a polysaccharide antigen. Only there is a marginal zone B cell stimulation. What we get is a poor quality IgM and some IgG and short-living plasma cell. So no memory cell, no long-lasting plasma cells, no activation, no boosting, and no quality immunoglobulins are formed. Whereas the advantages of an conjugate vaccine, there is an improvement in the priming. So conjugate vaccine can be used right from the 6 weeks of age. There is excellent boosting effect through the memory cell and the production of long living plasma cells, which will continue to produce the antibody and maintain the antibody level for a longer period, irrespective of the antigenic stimulus for them. Otherwise, memory cell will require an antigenic stimulus. Third important is reduction in the mucosal carriage, which is a prerequisite for the herd protection. The best example is HIV, PCV7, PCV10, PCV13, PCV15, now PCV20. All of them are doing an excellent job. Landmark study by Landsteiner says the same thing. Carbohydrate and carbohydrate with protein, it has given a very good anti-heptin antibody. So it is the same. Why conjugate is important? Can be used less than 2 years of age. Priming is excellent. Good long living plasma cell formation. So sustained antibody level. Then you can have memory cell. So boosting is excellent. Then if you use a conjugate for a polysaccharide antigen, the most important change which all of us should remember, and T-independent polysaccharide antigen is converted into a T-dependent. And once you have a T-dependent antigen, all advantage of a protein vaccine can be given to a polysaccharide, and the first student can be made a meritorious. Comparison, we have already discussed. For only for those who are listening, can just go through. Polysaccharide, T cell independent, limitations. Protein, T cell dependence, all advantages. This is, I think, what we have already discussed, so I can skip this slide. Same slide. This is exactly in a diagrammatic representation. A conjugate vaccine will stimulate a dendritic cell, will take this protein along with the carbohydrate, will break it into peptides, will present to a T cell with the places which are available on the surface, will activate T cell. Once the T cell are activated, we have seen the advantages, and what you will get, clonal proliferation, that means good amount of antibodies will be formed. Then affinity maturation means the quality of the antibodies are formed, and antibody switch means the quality antibodies from IgG to IgG1, IgG2, IgG3 and IgG4. All these four are very important as compared to plain IgG. This is exactly what is happening. Polysaccharide combined to an CRM 110%, which we have seen in PCR17, a pneumocyle, a meningococcal, and so many and so forth. So the different, again, I will not go into the details. This is exactly again what an unconjugated antigen will do and an conjugated antigen will do. This is what we have seen. Best example, Haemophilus influenzae, pneumococcal vaccine and meningococcal vaccine. This slide I thought important for those who are interested in immunology. A thymus dependent will be excellent, can be used right from 6 weeks, and quality production of IgG1 and IgG3. In a thymus independent, there are two, type 1 and type 2. In type 1, there is a lipopolysaccharide, which is seen as meningococcal polysaccharide, which is slightly better as compared to a thymus independent type 2, like an typhoid or Haemophilus or pneumococcal. So it will take 24 months to start reacting. A thymus independent type 1 will start responding from 3 to 18 months. The immune response is slightly better. Immune response is very low in the type 2, whereas immune response is excellent in a thymus dependent. Advantage, cost effective, memory cell response, long lasting protection, asymptomatic carrier disease is prevented. Then the biggest advantage is it has an herd protection. Disadvantages, a complex procedure, may be costly because the vaccines are costly because it requires a lot of complex modalities and all that. More the combination vaccines, you might have little more side effects also. So you should be ready. So most of the side effects are local side effects. Then there is a possibility that the loss of immunogenicity during conjugation because you are adding something and the immunogenic response is restricted to a selected antigen which you are selecting. So you cannot conjugate the whole killed vaccine, killed bacteria with the conjugate. You have to select a polysaccharide with protein antigen to form a conjugate vaccine. This is the real world experience. Haemophilus influenzae, streptococcal pneumonia, Neisseria meningitis, salmonella, streptococci. In the conjugate vaccine, the efficacy is to the tune of 95% and more. So any polysaccharide vaccine can be conjugated with the protein component to get the excellent efficacy, short term as well as the long term through the memory cell. Last slide, 1 minute. This is a very important slide, neglected valency. We have seen which are the different conjugates. They are using diphtheria toxide, tetanus toxide, Pseudomonas aeruginosa antigen, outer membrane proteins. Suppose you are using DT or TT in your vaccine as a conjugate. When you give the vaccine, there is a possibility that the antibodies are formed against the DT and TT component also. Whether the individual is protected to some extent from the diseases like diphtheria and tetanus, this is a possibility. There is no conclusion. If you remember Synflorix by Glaxo, they used to say there is some protection offered because we are using DT and TT. But it is not proved, but it's a double-edged sword. If you have the antibodies against DT and TT component, and suppose tomorrow I give the TT injection, whether it is acting against that vaccine also to give is a relatively poor response. So neglected valence is a new concept, whether it has got double-edged advantages also against the disadvantages. It is still in the research, but I thought in this platform we should at least open up this so that in future if you are reading, we will have definitely something in our mind as a neglected valence. This is exactly what the neglected valency they have said, that there is a B cell as well as T cell response against the conjugates which have been used. Friends, this is all about the conjugate vaccines, and I hope I have made your ideas clear to some extent. If there are any questions in the question and answer session, we can just go ahead. Thank you so much.
So I think Sanjay has taken these two basic concepts of adjuvant and conjugation by simple examples of supporting a child to score marks. And I think the class starting remarks on both the presentations of it. But I think as far as the adjuvants and the conjugate, I think these concepts must be known to a pediatrician. Now, as Sanjay spoke on these basic principles, we have 4 conjugate vaccines, which we as a pediatrician are using in our day-to-day practice. The Haemophilus influenzae, the pneumococcal vaccine, the conjugate typhoid vaccine, and the last is the meningococcal vaccine. So I think Dr. Khadke would be taking over the panel discussion as a moderator, and myself, Sanjay, and Dr. Arun from Delhi, who also is an ACVIP member of present 2022-23. We would be answering the queries, and I'm sure at the end of each vaccine, Rajendra would conclude as carry home clear-cut messages to the audience so that there no confusion exists. Take over, Rajendra.
Thank you, Sanjay. It was excellent presentation.
Thank you,
Excellent
sir.
presentation. And I really admire the way you speak and the way you present.
If
So-
Dr. Khadke, if you ask a difficult question, we'll need some adjuvant and conjugation by our panel members.
Let us see. So basically, I am really thankful to the organizers for giving me an opportunity to ask questions to the dignitaries and stalwarts in the field of vaccinology. I know Arun sir, who is a vaccinology wizard. I know Lalwani sir, who is already in the research of vaccines. I know Sanjay, a great orator and ACIP member. So this is an opportunity for me to ask questions to them. So I'm really happy. I just hope that my slide is visible to everybody.
Yeah. Rajendra, go ahead.
So this is basically what I feel now. I feel enriched to ask questions to these are the questions which are asked by common pediatricians to everybody. And now I have stalwarts in the field of immunology to ask the questions. So quick review of what Sanjay has said already. Said basically we are talking about conjugation and we are talking about adjuvants. So why do we really require conjugation? We require conjugation for all those polysaccharide vaccines, those who have polysaccharide bacteria who have a capsule which cannot be recognized by your immune system for first 2 years of life. Then you require some antigen like protein antigen, which is very well accepted by the your immune system and can be recognized in a very early stage of life at 1.5 months. And that's the reason, because unfortunately we have a dreadful illnesses with these illnesses because of these polysaccharide organisms in first infancy of your life. So the process was made as a conjugation with protein antigen and to make them that they are recognized by the immune system and we are protected from these organisms like pneumococcal, Hib, and meningococcal, and even typhoid also. The conjugation can be with different antigens. It can be with TT, it can be DT, it can be CRM, it can be and so on. Not only to say that this it can be total. Now the toll-like receptors of 4 and 9 are also said to be a conjugation process in the different vaccines. Now the first question to Sanjay Marathi.
Yeah.
A software engineer is anxiously sitting in OPD for his vaccinated child and has a swelling and induration after WP vaccine. I could hear the conversation between the grandmother and the person that the induration and swelling is necessary for the immune response. What is your opinion? Do you want inflammation or you don't want inflammation?
Rajendra, to some extent, she is not wrong. See, we have seen in our previous presentation, there is definitely some inflammation. The inflammation degree could be more with the wholesale pertussis as compared to the other, but inflammation is reflecting in the form of either fever or little tenderness and all that. So what previously they used to say, because every time they used to say the wholesale pertussis vaccine they were using, and if you get reaction, they used to say, the vaccine is working. So indirectly speaking, they are not wrong, but then you should not get this swelling and induration to the degree that it is causing discomfort to the patient and the family. So scientifically speaking, to some extent, inflammation is what is required for the better immune responses, because we have seen that the inflammatory response is created by adding the adjuvants and all that. So we want inflammation to be there.
So this is only used for killed vaccine, or it can be used for live vaccine also?
The live vaccine, usually the local reaction will be minimum. So you will say in the live vaccine, because they are not using any adjuvants or anything. Therefore, the live vaccine may not give rise to the inflammatory response, because basically the live vaccine is multiplying so many times, so there is no dearth of antigenic stimulus. Whereas in a killed vaccine or a subunit vaccine, you have a limited antigen given. So you want to use that limited antigen to the maximum effect. So I will say little inflammation is no problem. Rather, you should not worry also. If you are little more and having discomfort, then I will just give the cold fomentation and all that and forget it. So one way she is not wrong, but I will try to explain what is the importance of it.
So nice of you. Thank you. Now coming to Sanjay Lalwani sir, what is this difference between typeable and non-typeable HIP?
Yeah, I think if you look at Haemophilus influenzae as an organism, there are 6 types of Haemophilus influenzae. And the type which is more significant from the disease perspective is the Haemophilus influenzae type B. And the non-typeable HIP also exists, but it is not that pathological or doesn't give rise to that amount of illness.
See, basically, when we talk about typeable and non-typeable, it is only a cell wall which is absent or cell wall which is present. So if the cell wall is present and if this cell wall is not present, we call it as non-typeable. But unfortunately, we have a vaccine which is anti-HIV as a carrier protein. And they claim that basically otitis media can be prevented with anti-HIV as a carrier protein. So I just wanted to just highlight you on this aspect.
Yeah, so we have a non-typeable HIP as a carrier protein in one of the pneumococcal 10-valent vaccine. And there was a study which was done to see that really it has an impact on the otitis media. There was a lot of hue and cry when this vaccine was launched, but it doesn't have really any significant effect on the incidence of otitis media.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually, there have been 2 major studies in Netherlands and New Zealand where they say that NTHI did not reduce, the vaccine did not reduce the incidence of ear infections in children when they were used. So it's head-to-head trial. And
sir, your video is not on.
And this trial in Netherlands and New Zealand was done by GSK only. So they found there was no difference. So one place in South Africa, they found there is difference, but other 2 places, they did not find any difference. So eventually, only the one where they find the difference, they highlight.
Does the booster provide any additional benefit?
That's to me.
Does the booster of HIP vaccine provide additional benefit?
Yes, of course. If you have disease incidence which is at the higher age group, so after say 2-3 years of age, 5 years of age, then booster gives you a long-term protection and does give benefit if you are using a 3+0 schedule. 3+0 means only 3 primary doses and no booster doses like what government is using. The booster dose definitely will give benefit in providing long-term protection.
Can I add a sentence, Rajendra?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I think the biggest advantage of giving a booster in HIV is to give a sustained high levels of antibody readily available because of the incubation period of the HIV is very less.
Yes.
Like in PCV and HIV, you have to keep your army ready. You cannot wait like hepatitis B or hepatitis A, where the exposure to the infection, then again will the secondary immune response. So in short, for all those who are attending, if the incubation period is less than secondary immune response, then you should continue to give the booster. If the
So
incubation
basically-
period is larger than the secondary immune response, the boosters are not required.
So what you have clearly said is basically short incubation period and long incubation period. You have to understand between the diseases which have a short incubation period and which has a long incubation period.
Yeah, I think so. Sanjay did talk about when it is presentation. If you look at the UK study where they use the HIV vaccine in the primary vaccination schedule and a booster, and suddenly they removed the booster dose, and suddenly the incidence of the HIV infection in the pediatric population in the UK increases. So the booster are needed. It gives you a prolonged immunity and a prolonged antibody response. So booster is recommended in a HIV vaccine.
So at this moment, basically we have something to talk about short incubation period and long incubation period. Which Sanjay Marathi has already said that basically there are illnesses which has a very short incubation period. So you require all GMT titers to be very high for that vulnerable age. And when you have a long incubation period like hepatitis A, B, you can really wait for your other B cell to respond and memory cell to respond. Anyway, so if my child has received 5 months dose of a HIV vaccine and second dose at 15 months.
For me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
see, the one line answer will be no.
No.
But I can go ahead with the debate because unfortunately, Dr. Rajendra, you used the 15 months. And if you'll go even with your purple book, which was released recently, the recommendation for the vaccine schedule for the HIV from 12 months to 15 months, you have to give one dose and a booster from 16 to 18. So if you go technically, this patient, even if he has received one dose at 15 months, will require one more booster at 16 to 18. Whereas the
Arun
table
sir.
which is the table
Arun
which was
sir.
no, I will just complete. And the table which was given in the previous edition of 18-19, the table used to say 12 to 14 months. So this 15 months becomes, whereas the recommendation says 15 months. So if you go into the details, it's a different story. But the take-home message is, if somebody has received a single dose after the 15 months of age, there is no need to give additional dose. Here there is a technical problem, so I just opened this discussion.
Yes. Arun sir, you want to add?
No, just one line answer is good enough for everybody to remember. No more doses are required.
Okay. Why 3 doses till Sajjal Arvind sir? Why 3 doses till 6 months, 2 doses till 1 year, and 1 dose after 1 year?
Yeah, I think it depends upon the immune system. The younger the child, the immune system is not fully matured. So you require multiple doses to stimulate the immune system. That's number one. Number two, the disease burden itself is much more commoner at a younger age group than the elder age group. So the disease burden plus the not full matured immune system predates giving 3 doses, 2 doses, and 1 doses.
Yes. Now, Lalwani sir, which are the situations where you need a standalone HIV vaccine?
Yeah, actually, to be very frank, the standalone HIV vaccine is not available that easily nowadays. It's coming in a combination pentavalent vaccine or any of the combination vaccines. Actually, most of us are using, it's only if the patient comes to you in a practice, in a private practice where he has taken 3 doses in his private practice and you need to give him a booster at 18 months, you can give him a standalone HIV vaccine or in a form of a combo vaccine.
No, the problem is basically which are the situations where basically you have immunocompromised patient, you have cancer therapy which has been going on, you have immunosuppression, and now you want to protect this child from this maybe 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. You just can imagine. And if you don't have a standalone hip vaccine, what should we really do? Below 5 years, below 7 years, above 7 years.
Rajendra. Hello.
Huh?
See, there are specific indications for the use of standalone hip vaccines. Like you have already said, a very important statement I would like to make: a patient of sickle cell disease or HIV, during lifetime, if they have not received a hip vaccine in the past, should be given 1 dose of this. Another thing, in a sickle cell disease patient or an HIV patient who has not received any vaccine less than 12 months of age, and now he is above 12 months, you have to give 2 doses 8 weeks apart. So this is another thing. Third situation, and patient with chemotherapy, radiotherapy, you have to give hip, then you have to give hip after a particular gap of completion of the chemotherapy, and at that time you will not have a combination vaccine needed, but standalone hip is required like an PCV. The fourth situation which I can imagine, a person who has received no hip and he has received a DPT at 18 months, or the individual who has received 3 doses of Pentavac from the medical college and he has received DPT. Now I have to give an HIV booster. So I will have to use standalone. So this is another situation where I will have to use. Another indication will be HSCT. In HSCT, you have to give 3 doses of hip 4 weeks to 8 weeks apart, to be started after 6 months of completion of the HSCT. So I think these are the few indications where I can use standalone hip vaccine.
And if at all we want to use this hip in combination, we have to have that age demarcation.
Correct.
for the child. So if you use that in combination with wholesale purchases and that, then probably 7 years is okay, and above
After
7
years you can use Pentaxim.
Pentaxim. Yes. Government does not give hip booster, and advocates. I think we have already answered.
Yeah.
Now coming to the pneumococcal vaccine, the spectrum of disease which is caused by pneumococcal disease and asymptomatic nasopharyngeal pharynx, is it really important?
Yeah, so I think we are seeing a large spectrum by pneumococcal. You have we have a nasopharyngeal carriage because they lie in the nasopharynx dormant, and it is that droplet infection which spreads the infection from one individual to the other. So you have a mucosal affection of pneumococcal where you can get otitis media or sinusitis, and if you get a systematic affection, then of course you can get diseases like meningitis, pneumonitis, cellulitis, and all that. So I think what we are more worried with pneumococcal, which causes large amount of morbidity and mortality, it is the invasive pneumococcal disease which really affects the brain, the central nervous system primarily, the respiratory system in a form of pneumonia, and then of course we have sometimes bone infection, osteomyelitis, septic arthritis or cellulitis which can occur.
Bacteremia also we can add.
Yeah.
So the spectrum could be just nasopharyngeal carriage, it could be invasive disease, could be non-invasive disease.
You have to be very careful with the patient of sickle cell disease.
Absolutely.
Can be very fulminant, patient can die within 48 hours.
Yeah.
You can have hemolytic uremic syndrome like manifestation of PCV, and untreated patients has mortality to the tune of 50% in meningitis and 30% in pneumonia. So we cannot take this disease very lightly.
The most important thing which I wanted to highlight was 20 to 40% children and 5 to 10% healthy adults colonize during service.
And
And
the
vast
indirect
majority
advantage
is from low and middle income group countries.
Rajendra, the advantages of nasopharyngeal carriage is also to know which are the replacement serotypes coming up, and whether the vaccine has an effect on the individual by seeing what is the nasopharyngeal carriage. The
Yes,
best
sir.
example was Belgium study, And when they have shifted from PCV 13 to PCV 10, there was significant rise of 19A and high incidence of nasopharyngeal carriages showing 19A. So this is an indirect advantage of doing a nasopharyngeal carriage. Our studies of what are the serotypes.
First, the patient will have nasopharyngeal carriage. After that, they'll have invasive, non-invasive.
Correct, correct.
So if the incidence of nasopharyngeal carriage is increasing in a community, you can expect that now some major outbreak is going to happen.
Yeah.
How many serotypes more than 90? And what is the replacement phenomena?
Yeah, I personally think so. These three questions which you have asked, Rajendra, I think serotypes, if you look at India, for the large country of ours and large population, our surveillance is not very robust. Two large studies which are quoted for reference. One, of course, is a pharma-sponsored called as an ASIP study, and the other one, which was done by Johns Hopkins, was BASIS studies. So there are something like 200 or 250 plus samples. But I think the serotype which are concerned to us primarily as a developing countries are serotype number 1, serotype number 5, serotype number 6A, serotype number 14, serotype number 19A, and 23F. So if you look at the common serotype which forms a large chunk of illnesses in our country, is serotype 1, serotype 5, serotype 6A, serotype 14, serotype 19A, and 23. I think these are the commonest serotypes which is there. Now, the question which you asked was replacement phenomena. Now, please try to understand the first pneumococcal vaccine which was launched was a 7-valent serotype. And when it was used prominently in the developed countries, you started getting pneumococcal infection by the serotypes which were not in a pneumococcal 7-valent vaccine. That means the serotypes which were in the vaccines got replaced by the serotypes which were not given a vaccine. The classical example was when the 7-valent vaccine was used, which did not have 19A, we got 19A in the community, and then 19A was included in the 10-valent and the 13-valent vaccine. So whenever the number of serotypes are more, and when we are going to have vaccines going to be used in the practice, those serotypes which are not going to be a part of the vaccine are going to cause illnesses. The incidence will be much more less, but those will the serotypes which will not be in the vaccine. So whenever the number of serotypes are more, replacement phenomena is going to be there, and which will make researchers work more and more to come with more valent vaccine so that they cover more and more serotype. Look at what's happened for pneumococcal. It went from 7 to 13 to 10 to 14 to 15 to 20. And we hope so a day will come that we will not have a serotype valent vaccine, but a common protein conjugate vaccine, which probably covers all the serotype together. I am sure the vaccinology field is really advancing, and see the advances which have taken place in last decade. We'll have more and more vaccines, and the rat race for the valency will continue. But let us be very clear, any vaccine in pneumococcal which covers 70% of circulating serotype in the community by WHO definition qualifies to be a good vaccine to be used by a pediatrician or in the national immunization program of that specific country.
Thank you, sir. Pneumococcal vaccines which are available, almost everybody knows that basically Prevenar 13 which is available, and there are 10 valent vaccines which are available. There are 2 companies which are producing. One is a Serum, and second is with NTHI combination.
3 companies, 2 of the 10 and 1 13.
Yeah. So now my question is basically PPSV 23 contains more serotypes. Why should not I use it?
Like Dr. Sanjay said, a conjugate vaccine is better, can be used as early as 6 weeks of age, better immunity, T-cell. PPSV is a polysaccharide vaccine, cannot be given before 2 years of age, does not produce long-term immunity, and then if you give more than 2 doses, hyporesponsiveness.
Yes, sir.
More is not better here.
You already said about the advantage of conjugate vaccine over the PPSV.
Hmm.
Now we have currently PCV13, PCV10 Synflorix, and PCV10 by Serum Institute. How really they differ? And given a choice, what you would prefer?
I have to answer this.
Yes.
So the currently available vaccines, as you said, PCV 13, 10, and the new 10. So 13 has 13 serotypes. The Synflorix, the PCV 10 GSK1 does not have 3 and does not have 4 and has 4 and 18C, whereas the Serum Institute also does not have 3 but has 6A, 19A. So 4 and 18C are replaced by 6A, 19A in 10, the Serum Institute one. In terms of protection, if you have a choice, if the patient can afford, because only 3 extra serotypes, but the cost is double. So the patient can afford, we generally would prefer PCV 13, but otherwise, if there's an non-affording problem, PCV 10, the new one, the Serum Institute one, comes much closer to the prevalence of serotypes which are available in India. So we should prefer this because it has 6A, 19A, and as Dr. Sanjay Lalwani said, 19A is an important serotype. It's there in replacement, has shown replacement. It is a replacement serotype.
But sir, I have a patient who says that basically you choose a vaccine for me.
So ask him tell him about the cost. These are PCV 13 and new PCV.
There is no need of telling you cost, but at the same time, what vaccine you would prefer when it is asked to you to prefer?
13.
Absolutely.
Why?
Because obviously it is giving more coverage, slightly more, but the cost is more. And as compared to the old PCV 10, it's almost 9 to 11% more coverage as compared to the new.
Now, yesterday I was talking to these stalwarts, and I said that there is a 11% difference between your PCV 10 and PCV 13.
Rajendra, I think you are talking about the comparison between the PCV 13 and old Synflorix, because
old one is 11%, new one is only 3%.
Therefore, the difference you can see. It has nothing to do with the new Synflorix, because all the studies are in 2016. At that time, Synflorix was only available. So this comparison is already saying that there is a difference of about 10 in PCV 13 and old Synflorix PCV 10. If you compare with PCV 13 and new PCV 10, then the difference is not more than 3.
Yeah, it is only 2-3%.
Correct. All the studies which says there's the incidence of 3, 4 and 18C varies from 1% to 4.4%. So at the most, you can have difference of 4.
Sir, the problem is basically this is from Purple Book.
Purple Book says, I know, but this is a comparison with the Synflorix, not with the Pneumocil.
See, I think it's very clear, whatever little bit data of surveillance of few hundreds are available and on which we are extrapolating, because that's the base which we have. Let's be very clear that the 13-valent vaccine which we have been using and the 10-valent vaccine which is made by the Indian manufacturer, the difference on that data doesn't exceed more than 3%. The biggest advantage with serum vaccine is inclusion of 6A and the 19A. And I think if you look at the data coming at non-inferiority study of a 10-valent vaccine, because when that study I had done it, it had compared the GSK 10-valent and also the 13-valent vaccine by the other multinational. The antibody response, both the GMT and the OPA, both were at par for all the serotypes. So if I have to really ask a question and give the clear answer, if a pediatrician has to make a choice, I think serum vaccine for the cost has more or less 1 or 2% difference that of PCV 13. So it's a good vaccine, an Indian manufactured vaccine, a good antibody response. And I think it's head-to-head comparison. Of course, the 10-valent by GSK would fall low because of no 6A and 19A. But as far as the serum vaccine, I think it's head-on-head with PCV 13. A national program, it's going to be always 10-valent because it's cost-effective and it's going to cover. And I think from a pediatrician perspective, you judge the patient. But the issue is most of the patients are going to a government practice now, a government center to take a pneumococcal vaccine, and they get invalid. One more thing we must add, Khadke, I think next month, all our pediatrician is going to get another Indian manufacturer called the Biological E, which is now a 14-valent pneumococcal vaccine. Now, does that valency matters? Now, that 14-valent has 22 and 33, which is not there in the 10 valent of serum, but they don't have a 6A, which gives you a cross protection for 6B and 6C. So again, the serotype difference between biological E14 vis-a-vis that of serum doesn't exceed more than 1% or 2%. So for me to take it, I think it depends upon the pediatrician. All vaccines are good. There is no doubt that the pneumococcal 10 valent by GSK scores less now with an available vaccine. When it was available, it did a wonderful job. But now when we have a vaccine available, we should choose between the serum vaccine and the PCV13. And when we have a biological E available, you have another third by the Indian manufacturer. So we have 2 national and 2 international players in the market. When it comes to cost, I think it makes a huge difference.
Yes, sir. Thank you. But I think something in the purple book needs to be added or changed.
Because this is a slide which was there previously also. This is a comparison between the old PCV10 and PCV13.
No, let's see.
Yeah, it's there.
Now this is what exactly I wanted to show to the audience, that basically PCV13 conjugate protein is CRM197, PCV10 the conjugate protein is different, and PCV10 by serum CRM197. And those serotypes which are not available are on the right side of your table, and you have to see that basically whether they are pathological, whether they are really important in your day-to-day practice. And we really don't have serotype surveillance data in our country, but at the same time, most of these PCV10 they cover 70% and more than that 70% of serotypes in which are available in our country.
So I think Arun has told his answer, and Sanjay also would tell, but I personally think so. You choose any 3 of them, but I think cost is the biggest advantage with 10 valent pneumococcal vaccine by the Indian manufacturer, and the percentage is 1 or 2 or 3% difference, not a very big significant differences, and it's half the cost.
Sanjay, I personally feel if you go scientifically, then our choice should be PCV13, then new PCV10, and then old PCV10. This is what I personally feel. Without going against any company or whatever the evidence available to us, this should be our choice without considering the cost of the vaccine.
Now, basically, when we know that IAP has a recommendation that you should give pneumococcal vaccine up to the age of 5 years, and from 6 to 18 years, the incidence is so low that you should not really give pneumococcal vaccine because there is no place for this pneumococcal vaccine. And later on in age group, in senior adults, probably we can give PCV again. So which are the medical conditions which indicates that basically you should, because this vaccine is from womb to tomb. So
Rajendra,
where should we really use from 6 to 18 years?
Rajendra, the PCV13 is the only vaccine which is recommended above the age of 6 years.
It's a womb to tomb vaccine.
Yes, so we can use only PCV13. Though normally an immunocompetent person, as the disease burden is very minimum, we do not recommend this vaccine to be given to those who are immunocompetent having no disease. Now from 6 years to 18 years, let us divide it into 2 groups. One group which is immunocompetent but having a disease which requires more protection. So immunocompetent and high risk. This group includes all patients of cochlear implant, then CSF leak, chronic heart disease, chronic lung disease on steroids including asthma, chronic lung disease. These are the conditions, or even the diabetes mellitus they have included. So
see, asthma is not included now in a chronic diseases.
No, the CDC has clearly mentioned chronic lung disease including asthma on steroids. So this is the group. If the person who is above 6 years and he has not received any vaccine, or he has received less than 3 doses of PCV13 in first 24 months, or he has received 3 doses below 1 year of age. In this situation, you have to give 1 dose of PCV13 followed by PPSV23 after 8 weeks. The another group 6 years to 18 years, the group which is sickle cell disease and other immunoglobulopathies. Then immunocompromise, either congenital or acquired, including HIV, leukemias, lymphomas, solid tumor organs. These are the situation, or a congenital B cell or T cell deficiencies. This is the situation where an unimmunized or inadequately immunized child should receive one dose of PCV13, followed by first dose of PPSV23 after 8 weeks, and second dose of PPSV23 after 5 years.
5 years of age.
So this is the clear-cut indication whether it is from 2 to 6 or 6 to 12. The only difference, the child between 2 to 6 with the same criteria, in group 1, you should give 2 doses of PCV13 8 weeks apart and 1 dose of PPSV23 after 8 weeks. In the other group, which is a high-risk group with immunocompromise, you give 2 doses of PCV13 8 weeks apart and 2 doses of PPSV23. So
5
this is the
years
only
apart.
difference.
5 years apart.
Yes, yeah.
So that is what it is said in this. Elective splenectomy.
In splenectomy, 2 weeks before the planned splenectomy, you must protect the child against PCV13 with pneumococcal by giving PCV13. You have to give 1 dose of Hib. You have to give typhoid vaccine and a dose of meningococcal vaccine. You should complete it before 2 weeks. Suppose an immunocompromised person, and if the time is available, you can give PPSU23 after 8 weeks and then plan a surgery. But if you cannot plan it such a long duration, you give the primary doses, let the surgery be over, then after 8 weeks of gap, you give PPSU23. That is how you have to protect. Even the typhoid vaccine.
So the basically conjugate vaccine first, 8 weeks after that, you can give PPSV23.
Yeah.
After that, 2 weeks, you can do a splenectomy if it is planned.
And if there is an emergency splenectomy, all vaccines can be given 2 weeks after the surgery.
Okay. Recommendation of PPSV23 already high risk patients who are already on a immunocompromised and all that.
The same.
We already
Yeah.
discussed. Same. Now, healthy child who received only 1 dose of PCV13.
So they don't know, usko. Give 1 dose. Although it's not required, but the school requires it. So give it.
So you all say that basically after 5 years you should not give PCV.
Yeah, it's not required, but the school is asking for it.
And giving PCV13 has no disadvantage. So you can.
So we do not recommend, but if it is required, you can give. There is no harm. 2-month child was mistakenly given PPSV23.
Invalid and give the proper dose immediately.
Take it as invalid.
Yes, sir.
Give PCV13.
Accept it also. Three-year-old child who was fully vaccinated with PCV13 has diagnosed been for B cell deficiency and was sent to the physician for PPSV.
I think
Yes.
he qualifies
Yeah, yeah.
for PPSU20.
Give it. Give it. Give 1 now.
B cell
1
as well
after
as
5
T cell
years.
deficiency.
Yes, sir. Now my patient has turned 65.
बहुत लंबा
Because
practice
I
है
am
तुम्हारा.
practicing for five decades. Na? So my patient has turned 65 and never had a pneumococcal vaccine. What are the options for me? Is it off-label?
Yeah, see, DCGI has approved the PCV13 for the age group up to 17-18 years.
Yeah, so give
From the age of
PCV13.
50 years, you give a single shot of pneumococcal 13-valent vaccine.
And after 1 year,
And
give
after 1 year, you
PPSV23.
have to give PPSU23.
Absolutely.
In America, the situation has changed. Now they give PCV20 or a PCV15
15.
followed by PPS. They do not give PCV13 or 15. Either they give PCV20 or they give 1 dose of PPSU23.
Yeah.
Because they have got excellent control over the disease.
Now you already, Sanjay sir, you already answered this question. 6-year child posted for cochlear implant after 2 weeks. So I want to do it in
Yeah.
emergency, 2 weeks.
within 2 weeks, you can give PCV and HIV if not protected before. And meningococcal is not indicated in cochlear implant.
That is what we want to stress.
Yeah.
We have to tell the audience that basically meningococcal, which was cochlear implant, was a indication for meningococcal vaccine, is now removed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another debate. Government schedule is 2+1. No, I
extra
feel
dose
that
required.
basically,
There's
IAP says
no
that basically
debate.
3+1 is better. So if somebody has received 2+1 in government schedule, should I give third dose of pneumococcal vaccine?
Yes, I think let us be very clear that the government has looked at coverage of 80%, and the first 2 doses at 6 weeks and 14 weeks acts as a primary and prevent the infection at that age. And the 9-month actually vaccine, the third dose in the series, is added as a booster so that the person or the child can have an effective antibody till the age of 2 years, where the disease burden by pneumococcal is very high. So when it comes to a government program, 1 dose saving for a large number of cohort makes a huge health economics. So government is looking at 2+1. But the same child, when he switches from a government vaccination program to a pediatrician vaccination program, a pediatrician can offer him an extra dose and consider this first 2+1 dose as 3 primary doses and give him booster at 15 to 18 months.
Arun sir.
Yeah, he actually can be given. There is no harm. But when you've taken 2+1, you actually have already got a booster and it works very well. The only coverage which you might have extra is number 1 serotype. So the number 1 serotype continues to affect the child till 2-3 years of age. So 3+1 and 2+1, the only difference it will make is for the number 1 serotype. If you want to give, the parents can afford, it's fine. But otherwise, it's not required.
What is take-home message and consensus?
I think we can give, there is nothing harm in giving it and complete the series. Because if he's going to come to your clinic for subsequent vaccination, then I think we should follow for the individual protection and not the mass protection. So 2+1 should be considered as 3+0 and give a booster as we are giving at 15 minutes.
Okay.
So Arun sir, you agree?
No, I think that's what. No, if the patient can afford, if you can give it, but if you cannot afford, you can use it in some other vaccine like hepatitis A, TCV, and chickenpox, which is not received in the government. 2+1 is a good schedule. Otherwise, if he's well covered.
Coming to typhoid vaccine for Arun sir only.
Sure.
How many culture positive cases you have seen after giving TCV vaccine in your office practice, and the typhoid Mary is looking at you upstairs?
Yes. So if you ask me, I have a personal record of my patients. And till this week, I've seen 26 culture positive patients after 1 dose, and I've seen 4 patients after 2 doses. Since the vaccine I started in August 2013, so it's almost 10 years now.
Now the patient has taken polysaccharide vaccine at the age of 2 years. Now he's for the second dose of polysaccharide vaccine at 5 years of age, and he has come for a typhoid booster regularly.
Give TCV.
So there is no doubts that.
No doubt. Yes.
There is, when you give.
I think there should be a consensus that just give TCV and forget about polysaccharide.
Yes.
I think
We should not even
polysaccharide
discuss.
vaccine.
We should not
Polysaccharide
discuss
vaccine
also.
should not be discussed.
Hyporesponsiveness is not there with this polysaccharide typhoid. Huh?
What about the quality of the vaccine? Quality of vaccine efficacy and all that.
Protection is so less.
See, when you give a unconjugated typhoid vaccine, your seroconversion is in the tune of 60%, which wanes over the period of 3 years. Whereas you give a conjugated typhoid vaccine, your seroconversion is 85 to 90% and it stays for much more longer. So I think unconjugated vaccine should be off the shelf now, and there should not be any discussions on that.
Arun sir, single versus 2 doses.
So if you ask me personally, for mass program, for government program, WHO program, 1 dose is very good. Everybody should be vaccinated. It should be included in the NIP. But if we have a person 1-to-1 clinic, private practice, individual protection, I would say give 2 doses. First dose around 6 to 9 months, and second dose around 4 to 5 years of age.
So the reference says that basically this you are talking about the TCV from type bar for 7 years.
All TCVs.
7 years of zero conversion or zero protection.
No, not 0. I'm 7 years. I'm saying give the booster at 4 to 5 years of age.
The problem is
There-
basically whatever paper we have, they say that basically whether you give single dose or second 2 doses, the antibody titers after 7 years are same. There may be an increased GMT titers initially by 2 doses.
So one thing is there, but we are not sure about the seroprotection levels. We are not sure about the affinity. We don't know how much field effectiveness is there. So GMT titers may not be directly linked to the effectiveness of the vaccine.
I
Sir,
personally
we
think
have
so,
we have
Dr.
no evidence of long-term vaccine efficacy of the typhoid vaccine. So we cannot say that whether it has to be given after 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. If you consider the immunogenicity data, even for the 7 years, there is no criteria to say that after particular years of first dose, it has gone below the 4-fold rise. So if you compare those who were boosted, temporarily there was a very high level of antibody which has suddenly come down again. So even at 7 years, the antibody titers are almost same. So higher antibody titer does not mean that they are better. So, and there is no evidence to say that if I give 2 doses, the incidence of typhoid has come down. And
See,
so
I
there is
think-
no criteria to say whether 3 years. Then I said give every 2 years or every 3 years. What is wrong? Then we'll have very good antibody levels continuously. So scientifically, I think there is no evidence or there is no evidence of long-term vaccine efficacy because all the studies which are there are of the short-term vaccine efficacy. So at present, to recommend something like a booster, it is a personal choice, but not based on any scientific evidence. That is not my personal feeling. I
Agreed.
use single dose. And friends, to be very frank, I have not seen a single case which has come after the which has a multi-drug resistance or something. All of them have responded.
Basically, if you talk about the TCV vaccine, the protection which has been claimed is only 87%.
So you are
So
likely
other-
to get disease again.
Other 30% are likely to get the disease. No?
Whether you give 2 doses or 3 doses, still you will have no 100% protection.
See, the important thing to remember in typhoid conjugate vaccine, of all the conjugate vaccines available, this is the vaccine where no Western data is available because the disease primarily happens in the developing countries. That's number one. This disease data is evolving over a period of time. When we started using typhoid conjugate vaccine by the Indian manufacturers, where the cohort is followed for 7 years, I think so the data will avail. And I think what Sanjay said and what Arun says, we are looking at antibody levels, but we are not looking at the efficacy of vaccine in prevention of typhoid disease. But as on today, till the whole data really unfolds, I in my private practice still use a single dose of conjugate typhoid vaccine. Tomorrow, by chance, if the government decides to roll out conjugate typhoid program, which they have rolled out in Pakistan for that matter, they are using only single dose typhoid vaccine in the national program in a country neighboring to us. Tomorrow, if the government decides to take a subsequent, which is on the pipeline, I'm quite confident that they will come up with single dose. Now, whether to use 2 dose, it's a bacterial infection, the immunity does not lose, the breakthrough infection takes place. But at the same time, you look at, if Arun is saying that he has seen 26 cases, I'm sure he might have vaccinated more than 10,000, 20,000 babies over the typhoid vaccine over the last 8 or 10 years. So I still think so. The purple book also, we have put it on papers that give a single dose vaccine as on today. So let's not have confusion on that.
So the take-home message is at this moment, we are going to give only single dose.
Sure.
Now the Vidal test has come positive after the TCU went back.
Vidal test has nothing to do with the TCV because there are different antigens. In TCV, we use the VI polysaccharide antigen, whereas in Vidal, we use the TH and TO. TH is a flagellar antigen and O is a surface antigen. So antibodies produced after the vaccine is against the VI polysaccharide and has nothing to do. So whether it is positive or negative, the vaccine is not going to interfere with that. So independent.
recovering from typhoid, when should I give TCV?
I think as soon as the patient has recovered from the disease, you give it, because the disease does not give you the protection as the vaccine gives.
So the natural immunity which is caused by typhoid illness is not long term.
Yeah.
Which you can see in chickenpox, we can see in hepatitis A.
Bacterial infection do not give you lifelong immunity.
Anything in pipeline like Salmonella A, B?
It has been there in the pipeline since long. The problem is that A and B do not have the VI antigen. So they have to work out a vaccine. Only the C, paratyphoid C, has VI antigen. So it will be easy to produce typhoid and C, but it is not a good, useful vaccine. So they have to find a new way so that they can have a common antigen, which is there in typhoid, paratyphoid A and paratyphoid B. And it's been there in the pipeline for 6-7 years. We are expecting it soon. Soon means another 2-3 years maybe.
I
But it
think
will
there
better.
are 3 vaccines. There are 3 vaccines which are in pipeline with paratyphoid A and typhoid conjugate, the typhoid with conjugation. One which was initially introduced by China. The secondly, which was the study which was done by Glaxo, and the technology was transferred to Biological Evans, that is Indian company. The third, which is by Bharat Biotech, this is I think it has come to the phase 3 trial of, and most probably it's a live vaccine and oral vaccine. And this is again a combination of paratyphoid A, O antigen, and a typhoid VI polysaccharide. So these are the 3 vaccines which are in the pipeline, but which has not come into definitely they have not said at what time it will come. But definitely these 3 vaccines are there in the pipeline.
Sir, can we predict that basically if we give more TCVs and more TCVs, it can be a replacement disease by paratyphoid?
No, because it has got a different antigen. So if you are covering, see, paratyphoid plus typhoid is considered as enteric fever as a common group. But these are 2 different, antigenically they are different things. So if you introduce what Sanjay has said, that government will introduce TCV in their national immunization program, the overall cases of typhoid will come down, and relatively you will start identifying paratyphoid.
So
But this is
relatively,
not
it will
a
increase,
replacement.
not replacement. Yes.
Correct. It is not a replacement. It's a relative increase in the cases.
So it is not like a pneumococcal replacement
It
therapy.
is not a replacement.
Coming to the last session of meningococcal vaccine, what are the serotypes, what are the common in India, and what is the criteria for including in national immunization program?
So there are 12 serotypes, and out of which 6 are the ones which cause disease: A, C, Y, W, B, and X. And India has mostly A. Criteria also, there are WHO criteria which says that if you have 2 cases per 1 lakh population per year, below that it's low intensity, 2 to 8 is moderate, and more than 10. 2 to 10 is moderate, and more than 10 is high. So high and intermediate should actually have meningococcal vaccine in their NIP.
Yes,
India
sir.
comes in the low intensity, endemicity.
Now my problem is, sir, basically wherever our children go for post-graduation in US or UK, we are giving Menactra, which doesn't have B. And the B is very common in developed countries.
So they have to take B there only.
Yeah.
Most of the universities give it.
Because there are the students who are coming from all the other universities and all the countries where the A is also very common. So what they say, you at least protect with whatever the vaccine you have, and B, which is very common in the Western world, will give the B vaccine. So meningococcal B is given in the Western world whenever they go for their higher studies, and ACWY combination of a quadrivalent, we give it say 2 weeks before their departure. So this is how they are protecting against A as well as B.
Actually, in meningococcal also you have that replacement phenomenon. So earlier they used to have A, then you vaccinate, after that B comes. Like in England, earlier they used to have C, now B is more. So meningococcus also shows you the replacement phenomenon.
Sir, what is this close contact with meningococcal vaccine?
So this close contact would be if you have a patient in the house and you've been staying in the same house, or you have stayed in the house and within 7 days the patient develops meningococci, or you're traveling in a flight like this, fully crowded, and you have a long flight like Delhi, UK, 8 hours, 10 hours flight, or somebody sitting with you who develops meningococci, or you're a doctor who looks after patients and one patient turns out to be meningococcal positive. So these are all contacts.
So the close contact is basically household where you have slept with them for 7 days, daycare contact for 7 days, anyone who is handling secretions like healthcare workers, passengers seated to the next index case.
Okay.
That is very important. Not everybody who is
not the-
sitting in the flight,
Hmm.
who is sitting very closely to the patient, then only the
Yes.
people should be covered. But
And
in a
casual
car,
contacts
everybody should be given.
Casual contacts cannot be considered as close contacts.
Yes.
And the threat of the disease is more in first 72 hours
Maximum for
until after
14.
10 to 15 days.
Because the
Maximum for
threat is
14.
the maximum in the first 72 hours. That is why vaccine is not the first thing which you should give to contacts. First thing you should give is chemoprophylaxis along with the vaccine for long-term protection.
So my child who was playing in the society with the child who had meningitis and was admitted yesterday, what should I do?
I think playing is a casual contact.
No, but I think you would rather give chemoprophylaxis and the vaccine. This is one disease which is so dangerous. Not as dangerous as rabies, but very dangerous. So if it is your child, I would definitely think 1 or 2 days of chemoprophylaxis will not make a difference.
But at this moment, we have already said about the close contact. These are the close contacts. So
Like
my
what
child every day plays with the person for maybe half an hour, 1 hour, and now he is in meningitis, and my society completely cannot be taking a chemoprophylaxis and vaccine.
So I think this should be considered as a casual contact and should not be given. Otherwise, what will happen in a school? Every child will have to give. Every child who is there in the class will have to give because one patient has come positive.
No, but look at the second point. It says daycare contact within 7 days. देखो सबको vaccine नहीं लगाओ, but at least you can give them azithromycin or rifampicin for 2 days. There's no harm at all. People have azithromycin for COVID. People have azithromycin for viral infections. They can have for chemoprophylaxis also.
Yes, sir. Nicely taken. This is all what we have already said. India is in low endemic zone, so is NIP has not included it. What are the vaccines available? And what is the IP recommendation?
There's one polysaccharide vaccine available and 2 conjugate vaccines available. The polysaccharide is made by Biomed, ACYW, and then 2 conjugate ones, which are the CRM conjugated, DT conjugated, made by GSK and Sanofi. So the only difference you can think of is that the DT conjugate can be given after 9 months of age. It's given in 2 doses. If the child is less than 2 years, above 2 years, both of them can be given as a single dose till 55 years of age.
High-risk patient should continue to take it every 5 years.
Every 5 years.
That is what.
Now, when to vaccinate, sir? Basically, meningococcal disease itself has a bimodal stratification. So, in some countries, you have a disease which is prevalent less than infancy, like less than 2 years of age, and there are a few countries where you have a meningococcal disease in adolescent age group.
So follow your country.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in our India,
stand?
we
Where
have
do we
no studies
stand?
available. Studies are not available, but I distinctly seen in the northern belt and all that, all patients will come less than 2 years of age. So in our country like UK, they have started giving Melvio from 6, 10, 14 weeks and a booster. That sounds better if you want to control those meningococcal during first 2 years. I have not seen somebody who is 10 or 12 years old coming with meningococcal as which is seen in USA. Their incidence is very high. The prevalence is very high in the adolescent age group. So the USA people will give you vaccine at 11 years and booster at 16. Whereas in UK, they will give at 6, 10, 14 and a booster. So practically it depends on what kind of a disease prevalence your country is having. Unfortunately, we have no studies and our country comes in low endemicity. So not covered so much, but definitely the places like northern belt of India or some parts of Assam and all that, even Goa, the Mumbai also I think included in this. They should seriously think about the vaccination program in first 2 years of life. but it is not recommended is a different story. But if you want to give protection, then this is the group where they should be protected. Otherwise, giving after 2 years to everybody has no meaning.
So basically what the question was, is there is any point of giving meningococcal vaccine in your day-to-day practice after 2 years of age? If at all you want to give, and if the parents are affording, let us be giving it below 2 years of age.
Otherwise, also it is not recommended to be given, so we are not giving it. It is not
Okay.
recommended by CBIP that give it to everybody. Only the high risk group is included.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So vaccine don't prevent the diseases, but vaccination does. So please vaccinate, please vaccinate, please vaccinate. Thank you.
क्या बात है? क्या बात है?
There are a lot of questions on the board. I think I will stop sharing. And if somebody is there to monitor the questions, please go ahead with the questions. There is someone from Alok from Jaipur.
Yeah, hello.
Is
From
there?
Jaipur.
Yeah, I think it's Alok Gupta who has done it. And I think he has told that MCV given you must repeat every 5 years, which Sanjay did tell about. We do not have robust epidemiology, but I think the paper by Sinclair et al., which has only looked at the epidemiology of meningococcal medicine in North India and the northeastern part of India, says that the large chunk still is the meningococcal type A, which is the one which causes frequent epidemics in India. So if you have to really get a vaccine which is low cost and it does happen, then we have a licensed vaccine by Serum Institute of India, which is the conjugate meningococcal A vaccine, which is MenAfri-A, which is licensed but not still available, not used in India. But we are doing a study for Serum for a pentavalent meningococcal vaccine, which they are looking at getting into an Indian market.
Coming
What
soon.
is the fifth one? What is the fifth serotype included?
I think
X extra.
X.
X.
Yeah.
Must be X.
I think there are not a lot of questions there. They are mainly for the MMC numbers and all that. So I think we have covered Hib, pneumococcal, typhoid. So Hib, we has covered pneumococcal. EO messages have been given. Typhoid, as on today, conjugate, and conjugate. Vaccinate each and every child, and preferably as on today, still a single dose. Meningococcal and not a part of NIP, not a part of routine vaccination, but special cases you can give. You have 2 licensed vaccine, which are quadrivalent conjugate vaccine. And I'm sure Sanjay has made the initial part so simpler by the story of adjuvant and by the story of conjugation. I think the people would remember it for years together.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's all from our side. It's already 11 o'clock. It's 1.5 hour session.
65 years grandfather is asking for TCV. What to give?
Sure.
Off-label, but can be given. It's an off-label because it is recommended till 45 years of age. But there is nothing wrong in giving. If he's asking, you can say that this is not recommended. But if you still want, we can give it and see what is the protection of it. Because at 65, immunosenescence will also start. So we are not very sure what is the effectiveness of that dose given.
But at least some effectiveness will be there.
Yeah. So you can
And
give and say
typhoid
that
also is not so common after 60, 65 years because those virus patches go. But recently a friend of mine, 67-year-old, he developed typhoid, bad one. And he hadn't taken the vaccine because he thought it's not licensed.
Must be Pani Puri addict.
Pediatrician.
Must be Pani Puri addict.
Yeah.
Delhi chat.
Delhi chat.
Arun sir, thank you.
Thank you so much for calling me, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Arun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adwa sir.
Thank you, all of you, for calling me.
Thank you, everyone.
Privileged.
Thank you, Khadke sir,
for
the excellent.
Joining also, so many people, more than 100 people joined.
And then after 100, it will go to YouTube. So another few hundred will be there on YouTube.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Adwa sir.
Thank you, Sanjay sir, both of you, Dr.
Thank
Sanjay, Dr. Sanjay, and Dr. Marathe, and Dr. Rajendra, and all the people who joined. Thank you.
you, sir. Thank you for wonderful panel.
Sanjay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure.
Chalo, thank you.
Thank you, sir. See you all. Good night.
See you soon physically.
सर करू मीटिंग एंड